This episode of Sugar-Coated Murder is sponsored by
Podcorn. Podcorn makes it easy for brands and podcasters to connect to amazing podcast sponsorship opportunities like this one.
Podcorn cuts out the middleman and allows podcasters of all sizes to browse and choose opportunities right for their platform. We just pitched some ideas to sponsors and voila, we were picked up just like that.
Podcorn gives podcasters transparency, creative freedom, and full control of how and when to monetize.
And they've given us the chance to network with potential sponsors, and they've been with us every step of the way.
Click on the link in our show notes and check out Podcorn today. Hello, everyone in podcast listening land. I'm Karen DeVanie.
And I'm Amand Varner.
And we're sisters.
Welcome to Sugar-Coated Murder, where we'll discuss
And probably inappropriately laugh about and comment on
Yep, one of our favorite subjects,
murder. Oh, and we love to bake. And why not combine our two favorite subjects?
Baking
And killers. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time you're listening to this podcast.
Hello.
Hey, Sugar, we have a great and wonderful guest with us today, and it is a dear, dear friend of ours. Her name is Andrea. And Andrea, introduce yourself to the world.
Hello, I'm Andrea St. Amand. So happy to be here today with you ladies.
Yay!
And talk about a murder.
Yes, this is not a shorty, everybody. This is a full-on episode, and we've got a guest, and we're so excited. This is a first for us.
Woohoo!
Ooh, I didn't know that.
I know.
There we go.
I know. It's a maiden voyage sharing murders.
Oh my God. You know you've got a real friend when they want to come to your house and share murder.
I'm telling you. I mean, we just don't have a lot of
We
them.
don't.
Few and far between. We have a lot of friends that enjoy our company, but they don't enjoy it
They
with
don't want
murder.
to sit around and talk about murder.
They don't seem to.
What is the matter with
I
them?
don't know. I feel like that's kind of negative on
A
their
little
part.
bit. They're going to need to rethink some things.
Yeah, I think they need to reprioritize their life.
I agree.
So what are you fixing for us today, Sugar?
Oh, well, I know that when the people out in listening land hear this, it won't be Pie Day, but today is Pie Day.
Yep, 3/14.
So I decided that I was going to make mini pies.
I love it.
I'm going to do a mini cherry pie and a mini apple pie.
Yum!
I've never made a mini
yum.
pie before.
I'm excited
So
to see you
trying to
struggle.
think of it, I've never even made a cherry pie before.
Have you made an apple pie
I did
before?
once for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, our mom makes incredible apple pies, so there really is no point in us making
Yeah,
them.
there really
You
isn't.
know, unless we're going to be somewhere she isn't, and there's pie involved, which I'm not sure when that is ever. Well, when we're
Well, when we're with her, she makes a key lime pie because
She does.
she's
That sounds
mastered.
amazing.
she has
She
mastered the
dedicated
key lime
years
pie.
of her life to trying out different key lime pie recipes. And she finally decided to take a little bits from different recipes, and she's made the perfect key lime pie.
Perfect key lime pie. You will definitely have to partake in that one day because
Definitely. That
it
sounds
is an experience. And she
amazing.
actually taught my daughter one year for my daughter's birthday. What my daughter wanted was for honey. That's what our kids call her. To teach her how to make her key lime pie. So they got all of the stuff together, and my daughter went over to her kitchen, and none of us were invited, and they made key lime pie together. So now my daughter has been handed down the key lime pie recipe.
But it's secret from you guys.
I don't think
No, we
it's
have
secret.
it.
It's just that we don't bother.
Yeah.
We
Makes
don't
sense.
bother. Yeah. So, but Sarah has definitely successfully replicated that pie.
It's one of those recipes where mom tells you what to do, but you know when she's making it, she does something just a little bit different because hers is always better.
Right.
Yes. And I think some of it is when you season your food, a little piece of you goes into your food. And I'm not saying it's your DNA. That sounds gross. But I'm saying
It's your energy.
It's your energy goes into that food. And I think that when you are a kid and you eat your mom's food, Trout doesn't have a mom, and so he's very upset. And we're talking about a mom and pie. But I'm going to bake him in a pie one day.
Oh, Trout, be quiet.
So while you're doing that, I'm going to start talking about murder.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yes,
Let's hear it.
I have a great murder. It's just a
A
great
great
murder.
murder?
We would expect nothing less. from you.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I will say that I've been sick for quite some time now. I've gotten my fill of murder shows lately. So this is one that I saw and it kind of stuck with me, and I thought, that would be a good one to talk about. We're going to talk about this 15-year-old girl named Alexis Oesterle, I think is how they call
another complicated name.
I know. Why can't I just find a Smith or a Jones? I don't know. But it's Oesterle, and I think it's Oesterle. Maybe that's what I'm going to say, but we're going to call her Alexis and not worry about her last name.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yes, and this takes place in November of 2009 in Indiana, and it's Rockport, Indiana, which is in Spencer County. And I've never been to Indiana, but we have listeners there, so.
I've been to Indiana.
You were in Indiana?
I went to Evansville, Indiana.
Why did you do that?
On the way to Branson, Missouri with a friend of mine. We drove from Virginia to visit her mother in Branson, Missouri, and stopped in Evansville, Indiana for half a day.
Okay.
So I've been there.
You've been to Indiana. I'm so impressed. Have you been to Indiana?
Yes, I have. Driving through because I went to law school in Chicago.
Oh,
driving from South Carolina.
It seems like Indiana is their drive-through state. It's one of those, I was there, I was driving through. I've never heard of anybody going, I went there on vacation for a month and loved it. I'm not saying it's not a beautiful state. I think it's just one of those states that gets you to the next place.
Well, we just lost all of our listeners in Indiana.
Well, hello, Indiana. We love you, and we would like for you to write to us and let us know the greatest vacation spots in Indiana, and we will be scheduling our next vacay there. Okay, so Alexis, she has been raised by a single mom named Jessica. Jessica started dating this man named Ryan Shelby in the winter of 2007, and the courtship turned serious, and Alexis quickly bonded with Ryan. She had always wondered how it would feel to have a dad, and Ryan checked all boxes for her. And she really embraced their relationship, and she really embraced Ryan as her dad that she'd been longing for, which I think is really sweet.
She was dating him?
No, let's back up.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, let's back up.
I was getting nutmeg. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So
nutmeg can be distracting.
Alexis is 15.
Oh, okay.
Her mom, Jessica, is dating Ryan.
I feel so much better about that. Okay.
Yeah, I do too. I feel so much better.
Got it.
So, Trout, we're going to ignore you because you're being a rascally rabbit.
A rascally rabbit.
A rascally rabbit. Or otherwise known as a rat fan. So, back to Alexis and Jessica and Ryan. Jessica and Ryan moved in together, and they included Alexis, of course, to move in with them. And Alexis thought, oh my gosh, I finally have the family that I've been longing for. So she was thrilled to have a nice family, and along came her baby sister, Aria. So now she really has a family. She has a sibling she had always wanted, a dad she had always wanted, a family, and it's just happy.
That's
happy
so
times.
Fun.
I know.
The end. Let's don't go any
let's
further.
end it there because now it's going to be all downhill. So Alexis is very independent. She is a social butterfly, of course, at 15 years old. She enjoyed sleepovers with friends, and she did it often. And she wasn't always good about leaving notes when she left the house, but she was working on it. It was something that her now stepdad had said, you really need to work on letting us know where you are going. And Jessica, the mom, said, this is something that you do when you're in a family. So on November 2nd, Jessica, the mom, is at home with Alexis. And Ryan had taken Aria to see his family out of town.
Oh.
So he called to say he was having some car trouble and asked Jessica if she could come get him at a gas station. This is like 9:40 at night. Jessica left to get him. She didn't have a cell phone, so she was like, okay, I'm just going to go straight there. He had called her from his cell phone that he had, but she didn't have one. So she goes straight so she tells Alexis, I got to go get Ryan. He's broken down. He's at a gas station on the way. So as she's leaving, she notices that there's a black SUV that pulls up into the driveway and just kind of sits there. But it's like as she's pulling out, this SUV kind of pulls up, and then she just doesn't think anything of it. She's just really mind on getting to Ryan and Aria.
They pulled up in the driveway of her house.
Pulled up kind of next to the driveway, and as she's pulling out and leaving in the rearview mirror, she kind of sees that black SUV pull up. And she's thinking it must be one of Jessica's friends.
Okay.
Alexis.
I mean, Alexis,
yeah.
thank God you're
Thank
here.
goodness. Oh my gosh, we're going to get the story right this
I
time.
know. I actually have a little bit of morphine brain left over, so I'm not sure I'm even here in South Kakalaki. So, where am I? Where have I woken up? We're not in Kansas anymore. As she's leaving, she notices that Alexis comes out the door to head over to the SUV. So assumption is Alexis knows this person. Okay. Jessica goes all the way to this gas station, and there's no Ryan.
Oh.
And there's no broken down car.
Oh.
Oh.
Right. So it's like
she must have been so worried that he wasn't there when he said he was going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Jessica's like, okay, I guess I'm going to take the route that I think he would have taken, and I'll see if maybe he decided to try to make it home, because she didn't have a cell phone for him to call her en route when she was en route. And she's like, okay. So when she gets home, there's no Alexis, there's no black SUV, there's no note from Alexis as to where she went, and there's no Ryan. So she's like, what the heck is happening? So a little while later, Ryan rolls up in his car, tells Jessica he had gotten the car to restart and kind of slowly crept home in this broken down car.
Right.
He also didn't have Area with him.
Oh.
And he said, well, I decided to leave Area with my parents for the night and come home. I'll go back and get her tomorrow. And Jessica gets very frustrated with Ryan because she says, Alexis is going to be mad as hell at you for not bringing her sister home. Because I guess not too long before this, there had been some strife in the relationship with Jessica and Ryan. And he had taken off with the baby for 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And so it really upset Alexis that he just like disappeared with her sister, baby sister. And she really kind of had a little bit of she still was feeling some butthurt over that.
I don't know about that
butthurt. I wanted to say it really stuck in her craw, but I don't think a 15-year-old would say that. I think that they'd say, I'm a little butthurt over that. So anyway.
I don't think that's what they would say.
I know.
I'm just going to say right this minute.
Karen, you're the first person, I've ever heard say that. So maybe you're channeling your 15-year-old. Yes, I've never heard that
People
before.
say that.
We don't say that, or nobody does it.
I think nobody but you.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know. I think I'm going to have to look that up. I think it's in the Urban Dictionary. So anyway, Alexis had some animosity towards Ryan. So the next day comes. Still no Alexis. Jessica's furious. And she starts calling what friends of Alexis says she knew of. Okay? Finally, by that evening, Ryan said, I think it's time that we get the police involved. I'm really worried. So he calls 911 to report Alexis missing. So a Spencer County Sheriff's deputy came out to take the report from Jessica and Ryan. After speaking to them, he decided, well, I'm just going to walk around the property and see, if I can see anything, like did somebody try to break in, or did Alexis break out, or whatever. So he did notice that the window to Alexis's bedroom was slightly ajar, but not enough for her to crawl out of. So he's like, I'm going to note that, but I'm probably just going to keep walking around. So he keeps walking around the backyard. It's real dark back there, and he flicks on his flashlight and goes behind a shed, and he finds Alexis's body.
Oh, no!
Oh, no. What?
Yes.
Wait.
Yeah.
So this child has gone missing, this teenager,
Yes.
and her own parents didn't walk around the yard to see if she was back there?
I think they probably called her name in the yard, but they probably didn't go, look through the bushes and behind the shed and all that kind of stuff, because she's 15 and they're probably thinking she's out spending the night with a friend. She didn't tell us where she was, and now we're just pissed, and she's going to get grounded when she gets home.
Okay.
And that's
so they were
probably
more
where their
in the mindset
is.
she's left and hadn't left a
And
note.
hadn't left a note, because they've been having these issues. So the deputy finds her, and he could clearly see that there were stabs to her body and her throat had been cut.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh.
So, and it really shakes up this deputy. So he goes back to the front of the house to Jessica and Ryan, and he asks them to please come get in his car. And he sits them into the car, and he breaks the news. And Jessica just keeps saying, that's not my daughter, that's not my daughter, that's not my daughter. But unfortunately, it was Jessica.
Aww.
So the police officer takes Jessica and Ryan straight to the police station because, A, we've now got a crime scene. We need to remove the body. We don't want the parents to see us removing the body. It takes a little while when you're doing an investigation to remove the body, and it's not real pretty when you have to do that. So he's trying to shield the parents, and he's also trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, what are we doing here, people?
Right.
So they go to the station, and they interview them separately. And their stories match up pretty much. The investigators then set out to find this unfamiliar black SUV. Because they're like, okay, this is the missing link. So they find the SUV, they interview the owner, and it turns out he's a friend of Alexis.
Oh.
And this is what he told them. He said, I arrived to hang out with Alexis as Jessica was leaving. I saw her leaving.
Okay.
Alexis came out to my truck. As they were sitting in the truck talking, they saw a figure in the shadows that walked through the yard. And Alexis said, I'm going to be right back. And she got out of the truck.
Ooh.
So he was like, okay. So he sat there for a little while, and Alexis comes back.
Oh.
And she's holding a kitchen knife, a big old kitchen knife. And he's like, what the heck is happening? And she said the figure that she saw was Ryan, the stepfather. They had argued about how Ryan had not brought Area back. And Alexis was pissed. And she said, I'm so mad I could stab him.
Oh my gosh.
So this friend of hers said, listen, I need you to calm down. I need you to sit in the car until I know that you're calm, and I'm going to need for you to give me that kitchen knife.
Yeah.
So he said she didn't get back in the car, but she handed him the kitchen knife, and he put it underneath his seat. He wanted it not in her hands. And then she said, I'm going back inside, and he drove away. That's the last that he saw. That's what he says. Last I saw her.
Yeah.
So how was Ryan at the house with Alexis when he was broken down in a car at a gas station?
Where was his car?
Where was his car? All of a sudden, some questions are like, okay. So the investigators, the first thing they do is they search the black SUV, and sure enough, there's the kitchen knife under the seat, just as he said, no blood on it, nothing looks afoul. So they believe this guy.
Oh my gosh, this is not the way I thought this story was going to go.
So they call Ryan back in for some questions.
Right.
Because now they're like, okay, this dude's saying that Alexis said Ryan was home, and Jessica and Ryan both clearly said Ryan was broken down at a gas station.
Right.
So who is this person that supposedly is Ryan at the house?
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. And that's exactly how the music and everything went on this show that I was watching.
Right.
It really did it. Because that would just be a little predictable. Not that you're predictable, sugar. So they call Ryan in, and he said, I never argued with Alexis over Aria.
Trout.
And I never saw her with a knife. He said, so this guy must be lying.
Oh my gosh.
So he did admit that his timeline didn't completely match up with Jessica's, but he just kind of played it off as it just doesn't match up. It's just because we didn't get the stories completely straight. Please tell your dog to be quiet. He is upset, I know, because of this story, and he can't figure out the ending.
It's
but
very upsetting.
he may not see the ending of this story at this point.
He will see the end of this.
He's going to be baked in a cherry pie.
Pick him up.
You and I both know he will not let me pick him up.
Yes, he will. Just pick him up.
He's got his squeaky toy and he wants to play.
All right.
So,
He
sorry
doesn't feel
out there, listeners.
He doesn't
This
feel like
horrible
working
distraction
today.
that we're having right now.
He just doesn't feel like working.
He's not in the mood to work. So, okay, let's get back to my story, please.
Yes, the focus is on you.
Please. The investigators' interest is definitely piqued. And they're trying to figure out why, who's telling the truth, where was Ryan, who was this person in the shadows, and what's going on with this knife. The next day, they decide that Ryan and Jessica need to come in together and take separate polygraphs because they need to know who is not telling the truth.
Yeah, that's good thinking.
I know. It's great how investigators do that stuff. It's almost like it's their job. It's the craziest thing. So before taking this polygraph, not polygraph. I don't even know where I got that. Paula is taking a polygraph. No, it's a polygraph. He did mention that he had been wearing some work boots that he is not wearing today. So they asked him, what clothes were you wearing, the other day? And he was like, jeans and a t-shirt and these work boots. And they're like, wait, those shoes are not the shoes that you were wearing. He said, no, I've got these work boots. They got this buckle on the ankle and that's what I was wearing. Didn't think anything of it. So the investigator says, can you excuse me for a minute? Goes and calls the people that are doing the crime scene and said, find me these boots.
Oh, yeah.
So like, okay, we're going to find you some boots. So they did find the boots. They were in Ryan's closet underneath a pile of clothes.
Well, that's such a smart place to put them.
I'm just saying my closet's not organized either. So I'm not judging anybody on that.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Just,
Because they'd be like, we found one under the bed and one in the bathroom. You don't know what's happening. There's no explanation for it. So I'm not going to judge this man on where he puts his shoes. Anyway, they found the shoes. And they bring the shoes to the detective that's talking to Ryan.
Right.
The detective that found them did notice something that looked a little like blood spatter on that little ankle buckle.
Oh.
Yeah, and so he was like, that's interesting. So he had a crime scene investigator test the blood, and it did come back as human blood and human tissue on the boots.
And that's why I was saying not the smartest place to put your boots.
Okay. I'm not saying this is the smartest man in America either.
Especially if you got a little speck of blood on them.
I'm just
Throw
saying.
the boots away. Throw them away.
Well, he didn't notice the boot. The boots are, they're not, he didn't, when you take off your shoes, do you hold them up into the light and inspect them every day?
If I harm somebody, then yes. Yes. Yes.
Well, good to know. Good to know she's got an action plan for when she harms people.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the station, Ryan fails his polygraph. Now the detective needs to draw out for Ryan what the hell happened with Alexis. So another detective joins in, and this is when I really like the psychology of the interrogation, because you got the good cop, bad cop, and first you got the one cop, and then the other one joins in. And it's like, oh, we're not 1-on-1 anymore, we're 1-on-2, and now I'm on the weaker side of the numbers, and it's all psychological. So this detective that joins in says to Ryan, there are two types of people: guys that make a mistake and cold-blooded murderers. Which are you?
Ooh.
He is to the point. So Ryan breaks down, and he admits to the detective, Alexis did go after him with a knife, and he said he slit at her and then just kept stabbing.
Oh.
Just kept stabbing. He dragged her body behind the shed, which is a detail that investigators had not made public.
Oh.
So they're so smart, these investigators, what they're releasing public and what they don't. I love it. Meanwhile, Jess is still in the polygraph room. Polygraph, did I say it right that time? She's still in the lie detector room. And so this sergeant has to go in and inform her that her husband had killed her daughter.
Oh, gosh.
Ultimate betrayal. Just ultimate betrayal. So the murder weapon is never found. But there is surveillance footage that later shows what the story probably was. So Ryan is seen on closed-circuit TV, parking next to a nearby storage facility. I'm telling you, those storage facilities, they have something to do with murder all the time.
They're bad news.
And we have so many of them in this area. It's no wonder we have a lot of murders. Too many storage facilities.
They're like on every corner, right?
Yes.
You think,
And then
look,
in
they're
between.
going to go to a restaurant. Bam, there's another storage facility.
And it's like a 4-story
Like,
storage
what are you people
facility.
putting in there?
Who's storing stuff?
Do you have a storage? You got stuff in storage, Andrea?
I have a story with a storage building where I had to go on a case, and it was a accounting fraud case, and the people on the other side were really bad guys. I had to go by myself with one of the bad guys into the storage facility to get these financial documents, and no one in my law firm would go with me. They were kind of laughing at me, I'm really scared to go into the storage facility. These are financial documents that are going to prove an accounting fraud. They're going to get me in there and take my knees out or something.
God.
I've never.
Their knees, they're going to take your heart out.
I've never been more scared in my life, but I did apparently survive.
You did. Thank God.
Oh my gosh, because we wouldn't even be telling this story right now. Huh.
Sorry.
No, that's
Woo.
that's a storage
you're right.
facility. There's just
Nightmare.
nothing
Terror.
good comes from
I
it.
agree.
Nothing. So on closed circuit TV on this storage facility, they see that Ryan pulls up and parks next to this storage facility that's close by their home, and he turns off his lights in his truck, not in his broken down car. And he walks through the shadows towards their home. And he is then seen later on the same TV, closed circuit TV, running towards his truck and speeding away with no headlights.
Oh.
So he used this as a strategy, obviously. And somebody with a plan to kill doesn't normally do that.
Right.
Not normally. You go to your house, you park in your house, you put on all the lights, and you don't run away without your headlights on, and that's, you just go home. But this guy, obviously, he had intentions from the beginning. So they surmise that he intentionally lured Jessica, the mom, away with the gas station story, knowing that she didn't have a cell phone, knowing that she would get there and would be confused, but this was his way of luring her out of the house with premeditation. And so they come to the conclusion this was not an accident. This was not self-defense. This was pure, evil, intentional, calculated murder.
Whoa.
Right. So even though the defense tried to present Ryan at trial as a mild-mannered guy that was an Eagle Scout and was homecoming king in high school, even his pastor got on the stand and talked about what a great guy he was in the church.
Really?
Yes. Obviously, nobody bought that but them. So I have a statement that I'm going to read. Jessica made a statement, and it was too long for me to write because it was just too long. So at his hearing, she was asked to speak. And this is part of what she said. I'm sure she had a lot more to say. She said, November 2nd, 2009 has changed my life forever, and you will never be able to comprehend every beautiful memory I have of Alexis is destroyed. Your senseless actions destroyed her life before it ever started. Before she stepped down, she did make one request of the judge, which was to order Shelby to keep a picture of his stepdaughter that he killed in his cell wall. The judge said, obviously, she's not just dealing with the loss of her daughter, but also the ultimate betrayal of someone who's supposed to care for the family and take care of the family. And she wanted him to be reminded every day of what Alexis looks like and who she was and what he took from them and what he took from Lexi.
Right.
Yes. So he was convicted. He was convicted of murder.
Good.
Obstruction of justice, 2 counts of false informing.
We'll take all of it.
We'll take all of it. He is given 55 years for the murder, 1.5 years of obstruction,
All right.
a year for 2 counts of false informing. He was then credited with the 960 days he had already served in jail, which really pisses me off when they do that. Sorry, I'm sure there's some legal reason for it, but I don't like it. And all of these run concurrent, which has become is it concurrent? When they all run together. That really upsets me, Andrea, law person.
former law person.
I don't understand why they do that. What's the point of even convicting somebody and giving them all those charges and then saying, well, it's all going to run at the same time, not 55 plus 1 plus 2 plus. Right. What is the point? Can you explain to me what's the point?
I cannot.
I don't understand. This is such I have a real problem with this in our justice system, and I don't know who to ask to change it. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to write to. Who do I complain to? But I got a real problem. This, I am butthurt over.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
It really sticks in my craw.
That's better.
That's better. Yes.
Yeah, for anybody that's under the age of 30, they're not going to understand what that means unless they've still got a grandmother.
Or you.
So anyway, Ryan still maintains his innocence and continues to appeal his conviction.
Whoa.
He maintains his innocence. He says, even after he confesses, she came at me and then I slit at her, which, by the way, means that he either disarmed the knife from her or he had one of his own. That didn't escape me. And he still says he's innocent. He didn't do this. And he continues to appeal because that's his right in our law system to appeal.
Now, is he claiming self-defense?
He is kind of claiming self-defense, but he's claiming that he's innocent due to self-defense.
Okay.
It's like he doesn't even think he should be in jail.
Wow. And what? So we don't know what his motive was to kill
His
this
motive
child.
is because Alexis was on him like white on rice over this thing he pulled with Aria.
Okay.
And she's watching him like an eagle.
Okay.
And even though, so I guess he and Jessica had separated during that time, and then they agreed for the sake of the girls, they were going to come back together and try to make things work. And they were married. They had gotten married because Jessica's last name was Ryan's last name, but not Alexis's. But I think that Alexis was 15 years old. She probably got a little spunk. And this father figure of hers has disillusioned her by pulling this stunt with taking her baby sister away for 2 weeks, and they didn't know where he was with that child.
Right.
So now they're back together, and she's got her eyeballs on him.
Right.
And she's probably giving him some hard talks about it, and she's probably giving him a little attitude, and he's saying, I need to put her in her place. And I guess he decided that was behind the shed with the bracelet. Instead of going to family counseling or saying, you know what, as the father of this family, I thought that what I was doing was right. I made a mistake. I'm not going to do that again. And I'm asking for you to forgive me. Instead of talking to her, he decides, no, the easiest thing for me to do is just kill her.
Just get rid of her.
And then I can do whatever I want. And what's he thinking? I'm going to live happily ever after with her sister and her mom? Like, that's my thing. Not the brightest crayon in the box when then it takes us back to the boots in the closet under the pile of clothes.
You're right.
Not overly smart. Because he handled everything so poorly.
Yes.
And I don't know if he realized it at the time, but killing somebody is forever. They don't just get back up and go, okay, I get it, you're pissed, sorry, and then we just go back to our lives. He took that girl off the face of this earth, away from her mother, who, by the way, is the mother of his other child and his wife. Like, none of this makes any sense. And the fact that he cannot man up and say, I did it, and I'm an asshole, that really burns me. And I'm going to tell you, he's going on the prison tour list.
I was just going to say,
because I need
put him on go on the prison tour list and
vacation in Indiana.
We can talk to the judge
I would like to find out
the reasoning behind the concurrent sentencing.
Right. It's really upsetting me that these concurrent sentences make no sense to me.
Do we know, is the photograph of Alexis in his cell?
I don't know. I couldn't find it if it was or not, but if I need to find out, because if not, I am happy to mail him one every day for the rest of my life. I'll just mail him a picture of Alexis, because there were pictures in this article of her. There were pictures on the television of her. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. But this poor mom, what she's living with, she is a broken woman.
Of course.
She's a broken woman, and she is raising this daughter, that she had with this killer who killed her other daughter. I mean, what a juxtaposition, SAT word, to be in.
How about that?
I'm impressed. Yes.
Oh, it's the tea. It's the tea. It's the tiger tea. It really gets my brain going.
It does.
Because the juice is flowing. So that's my murder.
That was good.
It was a good murder.
It was a good bad one.
It's really, I mean, all murders are bad, but the details and the twist kind of got to me, because when I was watching it on television, I actually started looking things up, because I felt like the it's an hour-long show with commercials, so you probably maybe get 35 minutes of actual story, and it wasn't enough for me. So I was looking this up and trying to figure out, what they weren't telling me. So some of this did come from the TV, and I think it was either Dateline on OWN, or it was something on Oxygen, because I don't have ID Discovery anymore, which really makes me so sad. And so that's where I get my murder film right now.
You can't even watch ID Discovery on demand?
No.
It's just done.
No, it's done. I'm done.
Oh, we'll set up a GoFundMe page.
I think so too. And also, I don't have the travel channel, so I can't watch any more of my paranormal favorites.
And you're not going to be able to see my show.
I will see your show, because I know people that have that.
You know people?
I know people. And
I have it.
I know.
And we do know people.
So we're going to definitely watch that.
Let's talk about your show.
Let's talk about it.
Look at us. We're like Hollywood.
So I don't have the travel channel either.
What?
Are you kidding? So you'll be over here watching with us.
And actually, my
sleepover.
Yeah, my husband right now is calling it the no travel channel, because there's no travel right now.
There's no travel. That's true. He's so smart.
The show is called True Terror. It's hosted by...
True Terror?
True Terror.
Oh, write that down. I'm so excited.
It's hosted by Robert Englund, who is, of course, Freddy Krueger.
Yes. Did you get to meet him?
I didn't. And in fact, I did reach out to him through his webpage, to his people. And I said, hey, I'm like on the show. And of course, I didn't hear anything back. So yeah, I'm a paranormal expert because I'm a psychic medium, and I'm a paranormal expert on this show. They're taking stories that were printed in the newspapers as true through the 1900s and up till modern day. And then they're kind of doing a deep dive on those stories, like what you guys are doing with these murder stories. They're taking a thing and they're saying, okay, were these stories actually true? What was going on behind the scenes? Did they end up just being legends? Did they, what was really going on that a newspaper actually reported some of these crazy things? And I will tell you the stories that I'm involved with. They are fantastic.
Oh, I can't wait.
Fantastic stories.
So when does this air on the Travel Channel, on the No Travel Channel?
Starts March 18th.
Oh my gosh, that's the day before my birthday. Happy birthday to me.
Yay!
That is a great birthday present, to be honest.
I'm impressed again.
Yay! That's very exciting. So when we went to talk to Carol, our friend, she's a mutual friend, we did a shorty with her, and we talked about how she's never seen the movie Practical Magic.
Oh,
I know, which is
we
one of
love
our
that
faves.
movie. Yes.
So we were thinking that our friend Farmer Katie, another mutual friend, could maybe do an outdoor screening of, and on the side of one of her buildings, and we could do like a campfire and
love that idea.
Do a little sisterhood of Practical Magic
I
screening.
love that. With the goats, because Katie has goats.
Yes, with the goats involved, although I think they get put to bed when it's dark, but that's okay. They can stay up
And
late
Carol's
that night.
daughter has the projector for the outside movie.
And then we just
screening.
need a speaker. We can rent a speaker. It's easy to do. And then we can just do like a little screening. And I'm thinking it might also be fun to do some of these shows.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Farmer Katie has no idea what her life is like in the next couple of weeks. She has no idea. I think we need to make a visit to her and take her a pop.
Will they send you a tape of it? Or
no, I have to figure that out. And I have, a couple days to do that.
Well,
I have to figure it out.
Please feel free to come watch it on my TV.
Yeah, thank you.
So fun. That'll be my birthday. We'll get together on my birthday and we'll watch it.
Yeah.
That'll be so fun.
Hopefully all my parts aren't edited out.
Oh my gosh. Like that episode of Friends when Joey's part is edited out.
Everything we talk about relates back to Seinfeld or our friends.
Oh, Friends.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Or our small community of our psychic medium friends that we met through Carol's class. Everything ties back to that. And, by the way, everything ties back to murder.
Yes. Can we have some more water, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then, Sugar, after you hydrate our guest, I would like for you to tell us where you are and what you've done on your mini pies.
Okay, I'll do it. I will do it. So, one thing I can tell you about baking pies, this wonderful company called Pillsbury has mastered the pie crust.
And it's crazy because the stores seem to still have pie crust.
They do.
And even though we're all out of toilet paper and hand sanitizer and meat and frozen food. Right. Yes, at all the grocery stores.
They still have pie crust.
Coronavirus, they still have pie crust.
Yes.
So there's not a run on that yet.
Yeah. So I just used Pillsbury pie crust. And I took a ramekin that I have. It's actually a 1 cup size ramekin, but I measured it by my eyeball. With the muffin pan to make sure it was big enough and it would have enough room. So when I cut around the ramekin, there was enough to push the pie dough down and still have a little bit of an edge.
Okay, so you're making this in a pot.
I'm making it in a muffin tin.
That's brilliant. I was wondering how you were going to do that.
That's brilliant.
Yes.
I love that.
Thank you.
Sometimes that girl, she's just on fire.
Sometimes. So the apple pie, I just did apples, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of brown sugar, some vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg, and though the recipe doesn't call for it, butter.
Yes.
Because butter makes everything better.
It does, and nothing goes good with no butter.
Yeah.
You can't have butterless pie.
That's true.
Who's ever heard of that?
I never. And then I'm doing a cherry pie, and I use frozen cherries because I'm not going to pit fresh cherries. That's just not who I am.
That's not who I am either. That's not who we are.
But feel free
to
if
pick
you
your own
want
cherries.
to. Yeah. So I got that's just cherries, sugar, cornstarch. Got those together, and then I put a special decoration on each of my pies.
I'm so excited.
We'll see what happens.
No, I can't wait. The picture's going to be awesome.
We'll see what happens.
So far, you've knocked it out of the park.
I know, but
Everything
there's
you
going to be
tried
a
to
time when I don't. This could be the day.
Well,
Not on
there is
Pie Day.
something called
Yes, photoshopping. Yes.
We'll
So
fix it. So
we
it'll
still
look
have
brilliant.
time. The pies are in the oven cooking, and now I think that Andrea should tell us a story about murder.
This is so exciting because Andrea came with her own murder.
I do. I come equipped with my own murder.
She's
I
unpacked this murder for us. So
Okay.
you have the floor.
Are you ready? This
Ready,
murder,
ready.
I realized on the way over, we are coming up on the 100th anniversary of this murder.
Wow.
So
Ironical. It's crazy.
I know.
I know. So
The timing.
April of 1920 is when this event took place. This is a murder that is in my family
That's crazy.
in Fayetteville, West Virginia.
All right, up in the mountains.
Up in the mountains. Now, back in 1920 in West Virginia, Fayetteville was actually a booming town because of coal mines.
Oh, okay.
My great-grandfather was a newspaperman, owned the local little newspaper shop. He was also a United States congressman.
Oh,
People-
fancy.
Fancy gloves.
Fancy, right? People loved him. He was a working class kind of guy.
Mhm.
And the miners loved him. He was very pro-union, which that was a big fight going on back then. But the working class of people absolutely adored him.
Nice.
Yes. He had a bunch of children. His oldest daughter was named Della.
That's nice.
Della Taylor. And as luck would have it, the way the property was laid out, my grandparents, no, I'm going to say my grandparents, but these are my great-grandparents.
Okay.
Right.
They had property right next door to my granddad's mortal enemy.
Like the Hatfields in the
Yes.
place. Oh.
And the property next door was owned by a judge. So also
no.
a very powerful,
Yes.
influential man.
Oh,
The
wow.
judge versus the congressman.
Exactly.
Ooh,
They
politics at
hated
play.
each other. And in fact, there were
Awesome.
constant letters in the newspaper that would be printed about them going back and forth on politics.
Oh
And
my gosh.
the judge was accused of being corrupted. So,
Oh,
lots
the
of
drama.
animosity there. Now, the other interesting thing about my family is that my great-grandmother was a medium.
What?
And they would always hold seances at their house in the parlor.
In the park.
And it was
love
very
it.
formal. They had to draw the
Yes.
curtains and they would light candles and they would hold hands in a circle. And people would come from all over the state to attend my grandmother's seances.
That's cool.
So some of the ancestors, or the descendants, I should say, that think grandma was real, the real deal. And the other half of our family thinks she was making the whole thing up and she had a cane under the dining room table. And she would be rapping on the table and be like, oh, that's a sign from the beyond.
That's so funny.
So, we don't know. But Della, when Della was 18 years old, she falls in love
Aww.
with the wrong guy.
Aww.
She falls in love with the judge's son.
That is scandalous.
It
my
is scandalous.
word.
It was totally scandalous.
That is crazy.
Now we got Romeo and Juliet.
We do
Yes.
have a Romeo and Juliet. So the judge's son is named William Bennett, but he went by Bennett.
All right.
So Della and Bennett run off together.
Oh my goodness.
They end up getting married. They come back. They end up living in the judge's house.
Oh.
Okay.
Now, right during this time, too, Prohibition just hit.
Mm.
January of 1920, Prohibition hit. But up in the mountains of West Virginia, long before Prohibition was came about, people were making moonshine anyway.
Heck yeah.
And selling it, but not doing it illegally so they wouldn't have to pay the taxes.
Sure.
So the federal government was always coming into West Virginia to try to catch these people selling illegal moonshine. Now, the irony of all this, well, I don't know, tell me if this is ironical or not.
I will let you know.
One of the judge's duties was that when liquor was legal, you had to go get a permit to sell liquor.
Okay.
And who was the one giving out the permits but the judge?
The judge.
So he got to choose who got to sell liquor in southern West Virginia.
Right.
So I'm sure
Okay.
some bribery was going on there.
A little bit. Greasing the palms.
Right. But he's the guy. So after Prohibition hits, nothing really changes with the liquor distribution thing. People were still, there was rumor that the judge was still involved and still overseeing who got to distribute illegal liquor.
Well,
Wow.
interesting.
Yes. So it was alleged that he was in charge of what was called the whiskey ring.
Oh.
So once liquor is illegal, now we're talking about these people running moonshine. It's more like drug dealers today.
Absolutely.
Sure.
You know, and it was dangerous.
Yes.
It was very dangerous. And when you have the feds coming after these drug dealers, these moonshiners, whoever had the fastest car would be who won.
Sure.
So a lot of the moonshiners would have to run, like make these whiskey runs and be dodging the feds. So moonshine running, I mean, it sounds a little funny. It was dangerous. I mean, it was like running
Absolutely.
drugs today.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
And there would be shootouts. It was rough. So April of 1920, Della is living in the judge's house, and Della is newly pregnant.
Aw.
Not sure that was like totally known yet. And Della and young Bennett they're having a very tumultuous marriage.
Uh-oh.
Yes, and Della was prone to bouts of depression every now and then. But she also, being newly pregnant, her hormones were probably off the
Well, and she's
chain.
also living with a family who has never been friendly with her family,
Right.
and she's not able to see her family, and she can see probably her property,
Yes.
but knows that she's not welcome there,
Right.
and she's estranged from her family. So I'm sure there were so many layers upon layers of issues that would cause you depression,
Right.
and the pregnancy on top of that, which now she's not being able to share with her siblings, her parents, her grandparents, multi-generations in her family. They don't know.
She was disowned by her father.
So
Oh.
that's just awful.
She was disowned by her father. But not necessarily the siblings but yes, there was
Sure.
a lot of animosity. And here she is living in the judge's house, and it was just terrible. And her husband, this one Saturday afternoon, says, I'm going to go run to town. And that was, what that meant was, I'm going to go make a whiskey run.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
And she begged him not to go because, one, she wanted him to get out of that business, and she knew it was dangerous. But two, we don't really know. We don't know. She was just saying, "Don't leave me alone." So we don't know if she just didn't want to be left alone in the house or didn't want to be left alone with the judge who doesn't like her.
Right.
We don't know. We don't know what was going on. But she's like, "Don't leave me alone. Don't leave me alone. Don't leave me alone." And he's like, he goes off. He returns several hours later. And Della is found lying on the floor of their bedroom with a gunshot wound to the head
Della.
and a suicide note in her hand.
Oh, no.
And young Bennett, her husband, goes crazy. He starts wailing and wailing and wailing. He runs out of the house. There was nobody else in the house. Apparently, there was a 8-year-old girl who happened to be on the street. And he said, run, get the doctor. You got to get the doctor. But he's screaming, it's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault.
Oh, no.
So by the time Della's dad comes with the doctor. Now, this is 1920. There was no sense of preserving a crime scene.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So they get Della, they pick her up, they put her on the bed, they lay her out. Her father looks at the suicide note and confirms, yes, that's my daughter's handwriting.
Oh, my gosh.
no.
Meanwhile, young Bennett is just distraught. He is screaming,
course.
it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. The doctor says, wait, hold up. She doesn't just have one gunshot wound. She has 2.
Oh, no, that's tricky.
Oh, no.
That's
hard.
very tricky. It's hard to shoot yourself twice.
It is, especially when one gunshot wound is clearly from close up and the other one is from across the room.
Oh, no.
That's very tricky.
So the doctor looks around, he finds evidence. I don't know what the evidence was, but he does find evidence that she was shot from across the room. One's close up, one's from across. And you could tell by the way the bullet, I guess,
Absolutely.
came in and out. But there was also gunpowder. There was something else in the room.
Right.
So the doctor says, get this wailing man out of here who's claiming it's my fault. It's my fault.
Sure.
And get the police, get everybody in here. Now we've got a crime scene.
Yeah.
Because it is impossible to shoot yourself from across the room.
It is a little
Unless
tricky.
you get some elaborate So I don't know.
Yeah,
Right.
you can elaborately, but then it would be
hard.
really difficult to shoot yourself from across the room and then shoot yourself in the head.
Yes.
Because there's going to have to be more than one gun, and that first gun blast is going to have to not wound you mortally or incapacitate you.
You know, as an aside, I did run this case by a friend of mine who's a retired homicide detective.
Oh,
and he said,
fun.
That's a great Saturday afternoon thing to do.
Yay.
He said, actually, there are some strange things that can happen when a gun, like maybe the gun could ricochet and go off again.
Right.
But he said, what type of weapon was it? And I told him what type of weapon it was. He went into his garage. He showed me the type of weapon. He did a whole video on how it would be impossible for this gun to go off twice without a human being standing and actually shooting it twice. So she couldn't have accidentally shot herself twice. He was like, it's physically impossible.
Okay.
So now we know.
Friends. You have cool friends?
Yeah.
Now we know we've got murder. We do not have a suicide.
No.
Wow.
Young Bennett gets arrested, and because he's claiming it's
my
fault.
Right.
And he was the last one to see her and the last one to come back in and find her.
Right.
He claims, though, he pleads not guilty.
Oh.
Now, he says, I didn't do it. I know I was saying it's my fault, but I am not guilty.
Sure.
Like, okay, well, if you're not, who killed Della? The townspeople at this point, this murder makes headlines because we have a congressman's daughter
Sure.
found dead in his enemy's house.
Oh, wow.
So the townspeople who love their congressman get very upset. They're convinced that the husband did it, that young Bennett is the one who did it.
Right.
And he's just not fessing up. And they're really like, okay, let's get this trial going. We want to see what happened. So they obviously can't have his father, the judge, preside over his own son's trial. So they bring in a special judge. They bring in special lawyers from other parts of the state to make sure this is a fair trial.
Okay.
And the townspeople are just like hundreds of people show up for this trial in the morning that's going to start. And the courtroom's not opening. It's not opening. It's not opening. And people are getting like, okay, what is going on? We're ready to hear some evidence. And if he didn't kill her, who did? What's the defense going to sound like?
Right.
Suddenly the courtroom doors open and all the people are told the trial is off. Because Bennett changed his not guilty plea to guilty.
Oh,
What?
no.
Yes.
Bennett.
No way.
But it did not come with any sort of written confession. It didn't come with any sort of explanation of what actually happened. So the people actually get upset because they're wanting to hear what happened. So they go away. Now, back in that time, you could buy a pardon from the governor.
Oh, how fancy.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
There's a trick. You have to either plead guilty or be convicted of a crime first.
Yes.
So the townspeople start to realize, wait, if he pled guilty, his daddy can run up, this powerful judge can run up to the governor, buy a pardon, and come get his son out of jail.
Absolutely.
The next day.
Yes.
So now we could have a murderer who literally spends like
Buy
in prison.
a pardon.
That's it. You could buy a pardon.
Yeah, and I thought the term was beg a pardon. I didn't know you had to buy it. I thought you just had to beg. I beg your pardon.
I buy your pardon.
Now
We're going to
innocent.
change it. I buy your pardon.
Wow. That's
So-
crazy.
The townspeople, very upset. There's lots of murmuring. Everybody leaves. Bennett is held at the jail that's right next to the courthouse, just to give his dad time to go up and buy the pardon, right? That's what they're assuming is going to happen. That night, about 30 or 40 cars go around the courthouse square with their lights off.
Oh, the headlights off. It's bad news, people.
Something bad's coming. The people in the lead car stop. They all stop. All cars stop. People in the lead car get out. They go around to the prison guard, knock him out,
Oh.
steal his keys,
Uh-oh.
go back into the cell where Bennett's being held,
Uh-oh.
put a bag over his head. But he thinks these are his dad's buddies coming to get
Breaking him out.
They're breaking him
Oh.
out, and the pardon's already been gotten or something that it's
Yes.
time for him to leave. So he goes with them willingly with this bag over his head.
Yeah, that would be a tip-off for me.
Yeah.
These are not the people that
Right.
don't back me.
They put him in the car. The whole procession of cars proceeds out of town a few miles, and they lynch Bennett.
Oh my gosh.
They kill him.
Oh,
They hang him.
They hang him before he can get his pardon and get out of jail because the people were convinced that he was the one, that he did it, and that he was going to get away with murder. Now, in the meanwhile, after Della's death, my family was carrying on seances, trying to get in touch with Della. Did Bennett actually kill you? Who killed you? What was happening? Nothing. Radio silence. Dead silence from Della. Literally dead silence from Della. The night that Bennett died, the next night they had a seance, Della came in. And they said that a blue light came into the room. It shined on her photograph, and her voice rang out, and she said, "My killer is not on this plane."
Oh.
Now, what the heck does that mean?
On the plane?
What plane?
The plane?
So is she saying
Do
that...
we have planes?
I
When did
don't
we
think
get planes?
so. I'm gonna have to look up when Orville Wright and the Wright brothers flew their first plane because I think Della's telling the future.
Well, we don't know what she was talking about. Was she saying...
It could be like the plane of the earth or this world or...
plane of existence that she's on, and her husband is with her now, and she's saying, "My killer is not with me. You guys got the wrong guy."
Della needs to be more specific.
FYI,
Right.
December 17th, 1903.
So there were planes.
So there were planes, but I don't think that she was talking about that one.
I don't either.
No, I believe Della because I think this smells very highly of the judge's work.
See, that's what so many other people think. Because I ran this, of
smells
course.
like the judge.
I think that
I
he
convinced
forced
his
her
son. I think he
to
said,
write a suicide note,
I think
and
so
then he
too.
killed her.
I think he did. And I also think that he was pissed off that she was preggers. And God only knows that could have been his child back then.
That's what I was thinking.
I think he's a dirty dog all around.
Dirty dog.
And I think he went to Bennett, convinced Bennett, "Listen, I'll buy your pardon, just confess, and we'll get this whole thing, will just be taken care
To
of."
save himself.
And Bennett trusted his dad and knew that he didn't do it. So that's his out. And I think the judge is a dirty dude.
You have nailed what other people think as well. My dad thinks the same
Now
thing.
I'm in your family.
You are. And our detective friend thought the same thing.
Oh, he did.
Yes.
Look
So
at us.
good
Oh my God, we're ready to
detective
get our
work.
license.
Sister sleuths right
Oh my
here,
gosh,
people.
we're opening an agency.
Yes, and there will always be cookies and muffins.
Oh yes. And pies.
And pie on pie day.
Well,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
that's it's a horrible
And
story.
that was it.
It's a horrible story because both of them ended up dying.
Yes, just
Romeo
like
and
Romeo
Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet. And I do want to
West
make
Virginia style.
right. I do want to make a comment.
Yes.
Because about how about the legacy of murder, because there is one.
I'm sure there is.
And there is, it's not, I mean, of course you have the grieving families immediately, but after that, Della's dad, I mean, his heart was broken, and he was not a great loving father that he had been
Sure.
to the remainder of his children.
I'm sure.
He was very cold, very removed, and my grandmother, whose name was Hattie, she was Della's the next sister down.
Okay.
And she lost her older sister, who she loved.
Of course.
But she then also lost her dad.
Yes.
Because suddenly her dad wasn't there.
And I wonder if there was animosity towards the dad because he had disowned her. And perhaps maybe the thinking after a while could have been some bitterness towards him as well. And I'm sure he had horrible guilt. And men back then probably didn't admit to guilt so easily, and so it became anger, it became pushing people away,
Right.
and being mad at the world.
Right. And he was still a public figure.
Right.
He was a congressman. But from what I understand, my grandmother just never, she could never get the fatherly guidance and attention that
Sure.
she needed. And she also...
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Not a problem.
She also was a medium, but didn't get skills because her parents were in such grief. So
Yes.
she's opened up spiritually. She's got a lot of connection with the other world coming through and doesn't know
Right.
what to do with it. she became a raging alcoholic.
Oh.
And her behavior was a bit wild, let's say, for the rest of her life. And so she raised then 2 children, my dad and my aunt, who had bad childhoods.
Yes.
And she died relatively young, so I never got to meet my grandmother. But there's just this legacy down through the ages now of sort of these not having father figures, alcoholism, and just some bad,
so that's
bad emotional stuff
of things, and it makes you wonder what legacy Bennett's family has lived through because of the murder, and they're not on the victim side, they're on the other side of it, and it just makes you wonder, what's that legacy?
Well, that it's very sensitive. Like the Bennett and the Taylors living right next to each other, and they're still descendants of both in Fayetteville.
Sure.
But the Bennetts and their family think that my family staged the lynching.
Oh.
That it was my family that was behind Bennett's murder.
And honestly, Andrea, it's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched.
There's no evidence, but no, you're not.
Evidence,
absolutely.
But then that's another legacy that hangs out there for generations to come. And I mean, it's a cloud over everybody. And which brings up the point that murder is not a one-victim crime.
Right.
For every victim of murder, the ripple effect through their family, their friends, their town, that legacy lives on forever.
Yes.
And so that makes me so mad when we talk about concurrent sentences, because the ripple effect should also appear in the sentence. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Don't you just think?
Yeah.
Let's start.
You go and make that
I'm going to start a letter writing campaign. I'll get the form letter out, and you all can just send them. And by the way, Ryan Shelby will be getting a picture of Alexis from me all the time. I'll have to drive to other cities and states to mail it, so you can never find out who it's from, because I'm a big chicken. But, I'm going to do it. I'm ballsy enough to do it, just not ballsy enough to let him know where I live.
Yeah, that's good thinking.
Yes. Well, Andrea, thank you so much. That is a great story that you have given to us. It's quite a gift, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on.
This has been wonderful. Sugar, what is the status of your pie?
Well, I'm going to tell you that, but first let's just let Andrea say, because she's already told everybody that she's a medium.
Yes, we need
So
to
what
know,
if somebody wants to go for a reading with Andrea?
And we want to know all of your talents, not
Let's
don't
hear
hold
it.
back. Just give us a tsunami of all things Andrea right now.
Thank you so much. You can find me at AndreaSaintAmand.com, which is AndreaSaintAmand.com. Most of my work is remote, so you do not have to be right next to me in order to get a reading. You don't have to be in person. Most of my work is on the phone or video. So mediumship is I connect you with your loved ones, including pets. I had just like a dog reading yesterday, who passed over. But I also do psychic work. So I read, people are like, I just need help with my life right now. What's going on with my energy? How do I better align my life with who I am? I do deep soul readings, and I use that to coach people into a better spot.
Yeah. And do you do workshops? Things like that? Do you ever do like group readings or workshops or
do group readings? I do crowds. I do groups, and that can be online or in person as well. Okay. So just reach out.
That's wonderful.
And we'll put her information on our Facebook page when we drop the episode.
Yeah, and I'll also put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what we do.
Yes.
We do Insta things.
This has been so much fun. Okay, so my pies didn't turn out too bad.
I'll be the judge of that.
But
you're so cute.
My cherry pies boiled over.
I think that.
I think it looks amazing.
Oh, look how cute
and
they
then
are.
I made the symbol for pie.
I love that.
Good.
That's so cute.
Yeah, so they're pie pies.
They are pie pies. Are we gonna taste it?
Yeah.
Because I'm ready to get my grub on. What about you, Trouty?
And just for the record, trout is not in the pies.
Trout.
Fine.
He was
He's
not baked
the
into a
pie.
pie.
Okay.
No.
How do I? Do just
Just dig in.
dig in?
Take your
Do I
fork
have
and-
to use a fork?
No,
You
you
can
can
pick
do
one
whatever
up
you
and
want.
just put
eat
it in
it.
your
It's
mouth.
going to be hot though.
Oh.
A little bit hot, yeah. So I'm not sure how to make it so you're maybe I should have put less.
Oh my
hot in it.
God!
That's
Is it good?
It's the
Good.
butter.
It's butter.
You
Yeah.
taste the butter. I'm
There's
gonna
the
taste
brown
the
sugar
cherry, but
and
I'm
the
not
butter.
I'm not gonna eat the cherry. I'm gonna just taste around the cherries.
Right, because you're still on a soft diet from your
I know.
issues.
Got some issues, intestinal, less fortitude in my
so good.
intestines than I thought.
So it was a lot of fun to make it in the muffin tin.
They're so cute.
Oh my God, cherry is so good.
Oh,
So
I'm
good.
so glad.
I'm so glad.
Very good. All right, well, that's it. I hope everyone has a wonderful week and that everybody's healthy and safe
and
that they have
happy
plenty of
and not
products.
murdered.
Don't get murdered.
Mm-mm.
Don't get murdered.
That's generally good advice.
Yeah. Don't
It may
get
not seem
murdered.
evident to everybody. So, and then everybody out there, stay sweet. Bless your